This is Captain Ephraim. As the captain of Earth's space fleet's flagship, he is in charge of his trusty spaceship, a valiant senior staff, and a crew filled with disposable plot device people. His trusty ship is always going forward. Ephraim never has to worry about trouble. His superpowered spaceship can handle it all. Again, Ephraim sucks. Let's talk about why in sci-fi technology and superpowers. I'm author DC Fergerson, and this is the Worldbuilding Dojo. Before we get started, I want to give you all a quick reminder. Subscribers to my newsletter are getting a copy of Cora Blake, Arcane Agent for free. This short story is a prequel to the Dragon's Dream saga and is a great chance to get started with the series. I linked the newsletter sign up in the comments. Make sure to sign up and get your free copy. While you're at it, you beautiful devil, why don't you like me on Facebook? We'll make a blanket for it, we'll be best friends, and you get to see what I'm up to, get my books from the store, and all sorts of cool stuff. Well, the first question you might be asking if you watched last week's episode is, how is this different from the lessons we learned with magic? And the answer is very different, with a big question mark. Revisiting our wonder scale again, we see that heavily explained systems, usually technology, get to be more useful. Now the question mark really falls upon whether your technology is the heavily explained side or the wondrous side. How do we draw this distinction? Well, let's make up a quick comparison, for example, here. This is the Enterprise D, the ship from Star Trek The Next Generation. On this ship, I can tell you everything that I have learned from the show. This right here is the ship's deflector. Its primary purpose is to project an energy shield forward as the ship moves through space, deflecting things like rocks or debris from coming into contact with the ship. This is an incredibly important thing to have when you're moving at high speeds. If the deflector array is damaged, it's imperative that the ship not move for fear that a single atom could tear the ship apart at warp speed. Now, as a comparison, this is Alita Battle Angel. Now, who and what she is not only a mystery to our dear audience, but a mystery to Alita as well. As such, when faced with danger, a new power can arise. Alita doesn't know where it came from, and we can ambiguously blame it on her ancient programming lost in her head somewhere. When we start talking wondrous technology like this, we're in the exact same territory we were in last week with magic. The Swiss Army knife of magic abilities and powers that Alita can have quickly can become Deus Ex Machina, and as we've learned, that can make our stuff seem or feel contrived. Yucky. But this week, we're more interested in the harder systems, the ones we can explain in great detail. As we'll quickly find out, the most explained tech can be allowed to do basically anything, but for the plots of our stories, that is often not going to be as relevant as you think. And that brings us to what we're looking at and exploring. Today we want to get into how we develop these technologies, how they affect our world, and what their role is in our stories. Let us begin. Make it so. Engage. I always wanted to say that. The rate at which technology increases is so fast and so slow at the same time. It can be dizzying as a speculative fiction author to create a world where the technology seems plausible by today's standards but could still be so far off. In 1969, our man Philip K. Dick gave us Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, or Blade Runner as most people know it. He imagined a 2019 Los Angeles where we already had androids so sophisticated that we couldn't tell them apart from humans. By that same token, Star Trek in 1969 had a sweet communicator for Kirk to talk to the Enterprise wirelessly. By 2019, we didn't have any androids, but we would have looked at Kirk's communicator as an old-style flip phone our grandparent might be using because smartphones are scary. It's because of this that it's very difficult to navigate the minefield of speculation. What does Google look like in 100 years if they're still around? Robotics and cybernetics are at the cusp of a breakthrough. Neural networks are giving us AI that literally invent their own shorthand language to make communication easier, a language which we literally won't understand if it goes through enough iterations. That's spooky. Meanwhile, we may be entering a new age where space travel is done as a luxury commercial venture rather than something for specially trained astronauts. The possibilities here are endless, and predicting where they go is almost impossible, but fear not, we can extrapolate. Developing a hard tech system with its groundings in existing technology does have its own checklist that it abides by that's not super different from magic, but with some other important considerations. So, again, what does this technology do? If this tech is at the heart of your world building, be it a spaceship or Terminators, you want to know everything you can about it. Now, who can use it? Is this tech open to just anyone? Is it commercially available, or only open to elites or scientists or the military even? Next, how does it work? Unlike magic, we do want to understand exactly what governs this tech. Is it autonomous? Is it an AI? If it's a tool, what tool do we understand in the present day that it's most like? Where are the limits for this technology? Just as important as magic, we need to know what this tech can and cannot do. The boundaries are what make it interesting, especially when a character is faced with the inevitable situation this tech can't get them out of. When was the tech created? Is this a brand new tech, or built upon existing technology that your people have been using for a long time? This is important for the same reason it matters in magic, which is societal adjustment. As with all magic systems, we have to consider the wider impacts and ramifications this technology has on the world. The length of time that the technology's been around plays into that. Now, we've established how our tech fits in our world. We need to get into the world building and later the story crafting. The thing is, there's a valuable lesson here for what takes place on the other end of the wonder scale, and that brings us to our next point. Though it may come as no shock to you, the farther we travel on the wonder scale toward hard sci-fi, the less this useful power becomes an important part of our story. Since we know that there are certain problems we can fix with this technology, our major plot points involving this technology will often revolve around the tech failing, or having to use it in ingenious ways to resolve issues it wasn't meant for. What is far and away the case of these stories is that they're done with more character-focused tales telling relatable human stories in this world of high technology. I would say that with science fiction and fantasy, the dividing line is not just the wondrous versus the explained, but the focus on the power it provides. For example, many fantasies center around being a chosen one that must harness this incredible magic power and use it to vanquish the evil. The power is great and wondrous, and it can be used as a tool to facilitate winning the day. On the other end, sci-fi has a heavy focus on great technology being all around our characters, from spaceships with artificial gravity to replicators to phasers. However, it is very rare that the story will ever center around mastering this technology in order to win the day with it. More often than not, the tech becomes a backdrop, a part of the setting, or a tool in the protagonist's tool belt. It's a very important distinction because it bleeds through across genres. For example, take the concept of an alien invader. Let's say, for argument's sake, we're comparing the Breaking Bad episode of Fly and the first Alien film. Now, Breaking Bad is not a sci-fi show at all, but it has a great deal in common with sci-fi storytelling in this particular episode. See, Walt is running his lab and he finds a fly. This drives him throughout the entire episode, not just to kill the fly, but it also makes him realize there's a means by which it got into his underground lab. Despite cleaning agents, a rolled up newspaper, all these advanced tools at his disposal, this tiny little invader just won't die. More than that, though, the fly is a symbol of Walt's desire to control everything around him, even nature. He obsesses about this fly. His partner Jesse comes along and he wraps Jesse up in this hunt, another symbol of how Walt drags Jesse into his obsession. In the first Alien film, we have the alien brought aboard the ship by way of a crew member, and then all hell breaks loose. Now, this ship has an AI, guns, flamethrowers, nets, an airlock, a capable crew, even an android, and none of this matters at all. The alien hides in the air ducts, stalking them, picking them apart when he finds them alone. Just like Walt, the crew is trying to swat the fly in their spaceship, but it keeps killing all of them. One is drama, the other is horror. Neither one of these focuses on the technology of their world. You see what I mean? The tool is useless unless the invader stands still and lets the hero kill it. Instead, in the drama, the bug taunts Walt and comes to symbolize bigger issues in his life, while in the horror, the creature lies in wait, preying upon our heroes from the shadows. This brings us to some of the deepest parts of using technology in our worlds, and is right at the heart of the greatest sci-fi. For this, I have to jump over to one of the greatest sci-fi franchises in history, and that is Star Trek. For over 50 years, the franchise and its numerous spin-off series have used the highest of high tech to tell stories not about technology at all. The vast majority of the content you can watch for Star Trek takes place in the late 23rd and 24th century. As such, our technology is wildly powerful, traveling across star systems at warp speed. Now, to illustrate my point here, though there are countless episodes where I could use specific examples, I'm going to use a hypothetical, more general scenario. The Enterprise is visiting a planet. While there, one of their crew gets themselves in trouble with the local laws and is made to stand trial. The laws of this planet are completely backwards. All attempts at diplomacy are failing. Now, here's where we get to the heart of science fiction. The Enterprise could bring to bear phasers and photon torpedoes to pelt the planet with destruction. The very threat of this incredible power, to reduce the planet to cinders, is at the captain's disposal. Do you see the problem here? This technology is so well defined and so explained that we know the weapons could be used as a tool for the captain to get his way, but he can't. The thing about this scenario is that it's not just about the act of going in guns blazing that is morally reprehensible for a hero. Sure, it's easy to point that out, but it's low-hanging fruit. What the real meat of the story is, and why the captain can't do this, is the greatest ramification on the universe. He pillages this planet, gets his people back, but he is himself a reflection of the United Federation of Planets. Allied worlds will hear of this treachery and leave, or worse, declare war. Even bigger than that, this is an opportunity for the writer themselves to draw parallels and make bold statements with metaphor and symbolism. Yes, this planet's world may seem backwards to us, but now compare it to our own world. We must share this world with others, people whose laws we may not agree with. It's not possible to rob them of their sovereignty through violence, so other methods must be employed. Whether by genius or subterfuge, our heroes save the day and subvert the crisis, having their cake and eating it too, while our writer also gets to make a statement while being entertaining. That is the greatest power of sci-fi in all of the sci-fi of history. If you think that just because it starred Will Smith, that I, Robot was a popcorn flick, you weren't paying attention. This is Isaac Asimov's classic about the essence of consciousness and what constitutes a free-thinking person. All the while, an extremely entertaining film about a likable, adorable robot. Total Recall, or more so than anything, the short story it's based on, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale by our man, Philip K. Dick, is not just an action ride across Mars to figure out the secret of who Douglas Quaid is. The story poses an interesting question of false memories as a kind of time travel, and how fragile our perception of reality is when we have only our memories to rely on. It's important to keep this in mind, as if you're in this genre, you are firmly in a space where you're crafting the technology of your world, and it's a small detail in comparison to the scope and ambition of your story. I probably don't have to tell you that, though. If you've gotten this far in the video, I think deep down you already knew. I have to be honest, I'm including this section because it's very relevant to the discussion, but I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit out of my depth. As a lover and student of science, I'd like to believe I can understand any concept that is explained to me, but hard science fiction is the pursuit of accurate, gritty scientific realism. This genre is well occupied with many academic minds and literal rocket scientists, so I'll leave the nuts and bolts to them. But I will say this. Purists and fans of this genre will expect you to spend a great deal of time not only on the inner workings of your technology and world building, but extra care is expected to explain it. Now, we never want to sound unnatural, so my tips are the same as always. Show don't tell. Details like this we want to have come out in dialogue and narrative, but also this important part, where it feels natural in the storytelling to do so. So yes, you're going to plan a lot harder for something like, say, Interstellar than you would plan for Ready Player One, and the difference is staggering. The quality of the worlds and storytelling in both book and film are a light year apart, pun intended. Interstellar uses the everyman of Matthew McConaughey for the scientific minds to explain the concepts of the world too, thereby educating us, the audience, as well. All of the details that were explained are scientifically valid and something you could learn in a textbook. On the other end of that is Ready Player One, which tells us that in a dystopian future marred by overpopulation, the bread and circuses of the world is better than real life VR that half the planet connects to. More than just an online game, it is so much better than the dystopian world our hero lives in that they could be happy there. When it isn't throwing a blinding number of pop culture references at you, it does very little to explain its tech. If you compare the world of Ready Player One to throwing on an Oculus, you know that your online utopia is going to give you a headache after a few hours, and hugging a real person still feels better than a tactile suit rubbing up on you. You'll just have to take my word for the last one. I'm not explaining that any further. The point is, Ready Player One is close to a tech as magic system, meaning that the technology is wondrous and not explained very well, which also means it follows more tropes and beats of a fantasy story than a sci-fi one. Plus, it's dystopian, so it's quite a mishmash. Great popcorn flick, though. Science fiction has never been a genre at the mercy of its own systems, unless that system is literally science. Technology has an important role to play in your world, but I dare say that there isn't a technology you can come up with that would be more important or memorable than the story that accompanies it. Once again, the donations from you guys are so awesome, and I thank you so much. We're still working with the Boston-based Needs organization to get this beautiful lady a service dog. Her name is Liana. She's 11 and on the spectrum. This wonderful person is my little girl, and if you'd like to help out, there's a link in the comments below. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. The link is also in the comments, and you're going to get Cora Blake, Arcane Agent, totally free. You'll get cool news about what I'm working on books and here on the channel, and it comes loaded with cool authors and promotions for fantasy and sci-fi. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear about new videos, and as always, I'm DC Fergerson. Now have fun and get crafting.